Day 1. Arrival in Jerusalem, the city of gold. The plane touched down in Tel Aviv early in the morning, and after a shuttle ride through rolling hills and desert patches, Jerusalem rose like a golden vision on the horizon. The sun shimmered against limestone buildings, and narrow alleyways beckoned with ancient secrets. David and Sue stood outside Jaffa Gate, one of the grand entrances to the old city of Jerusalem. Cobblestone streets, children laughing, Arabic and Hebrew signs, the smell of za'atar and fresh bread. It was all overwhelming in the best way. "I feel like we've stepped into history," Sue whispered. Their first stop was the Western Wall, Kotel, sacred to Jews around the world. David approached with respect, touching the stones and placing a small folded prayer into the cracks. Sue watched others pray quietly, the sounds of weeping and whispers drifting through the square. Next, they visited the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the atmosphere was hushed and reverent. Greek Orthodox, Catholic, and Armenian priests passed by in their robes. Inside, candlelight flickered over pilgrims kneeling in prayer. David stood quietly beside the stone of anointing, touched by the deep emotion of the place. Later, they wandered through the Muslim quarter, where the Dome of the Rock shimmered like a jewel. Though non-Muslims couldn't enter the shrine, they admired the Golden Dome from the Temple Mount Plaza. They finished the day with a walk down the Via Dolorosa, the path believed to trace Jesus' final steps. The sound of a muezzin's call to prayer echoed as sunset painted the walls a soft orange. Over dinner at a cozy rooftop restaurant overlooking the old city, they shared shakshuka, warm pita, and mint tea. David raised his glass. Today, one in a land that never sleeps. Day 2. Mount of Olives, Gethsemane, Yad Vashem. Day 2 began with a taxi ride to the Mount of Olives, just outside the city walls. The view was breathtaking. Jerusalem spread out beneath them, the Golden Dome shining in the distance. They visited the Chapel of the Ascension and walked down to the Church of All Nations, where olive trees over 200 years old shaded the Garden of Gethsemane. Sue sat quietly on a bench, gazing at the gnarled trees. "It's peaceful here, even with the tour groups." Next, they took a bus to Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial. It was sobering and powerful.
The Hall of Names, with photos and voices of victims. "This is something everyone should see," David said, his voice quiet.
That evening, they strolled through the Mahane Yehuda market, where smells of spices, fresh fruit, and grilled meats filled the air. They shared a falafel wrap and bought pomegranate juice from a smiling vendor named Amir. Sue laughed when David tried to haggle over a tiny jar of za'atar and ended up paying more. Day 3. Bethlehem, crossing into the West Bank. Early on day 3, David and Sue took a tour bus to Bethlehem, crossing through a checkpoint into the West Bank. The contrast was immediate: Arabic signs, concrete walls with colorful graffiti, and children playing in alleys. A large mural of the Dove of Peace on the separation barrier greeted them. Their local guide, Elias, welcomed them warmly and led them to the Church of the Nativity, built over the cave where Jesus is believed to have been born. They knelt quietly in the small grotto, lit by candles and steeped in silence. Outside, Sue took a photo with a local girl selling handmade crosses. "Her name's Lila," she said. "She gave me this olive wood charm." Lunch was at a family-owned restaurant where they shared makluba, an upside-down rice and chicken dish, and sweet kanafeh for dessert. David complimented the chef, and the whole staff beamed. Later, they visited the Milk Grotto, a peaceful site associated with Mary and Jesus, and walked through a Christian refugee camp, where murals told stories of hope, struggle, and survival. Smooth, ivory-colored stone walls curved gently, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere.
Back in Jerusalem, they reflected on the day. "This place is layered, beautiful, and heartbreaking all at once," Sue said.
Day 4. Jericho, Qasr el Yahud, the Dead Sea. With a local Palestinian tourist guide, they ventured deeper into the West Bank on day 4. First stop, Jericho, one of the world's oldest cities. In the desert heat, they visited Tellus, Sultan, the archaeological mound of ancient Jericho. Their guide explained its 10,000-year-old walls.
"I never imagined standing in a city mentioned in both the Torah and the Quran," David said. clearly in awe.
Next, they visited Qasr el-Yahud, the traditional site of Jesus' baptism in the Jordan River. Sue touched the water gently and smiled. It feels sacred.
They spent the afternoon floating in the Dead Sea, laughing as they tried, and failed, to sit upright in the salty water. David smeared black mud on his face and arms. "Do I look younger yet?" "You look like a sea monster," Sue giggled, splashing him. Their skin tingled as they dried under the desert sun. That night, they stayed in a small inn near Jericho, watching the stars spread across the quiet desert sky. Day 5. Ramallah, churches, and farewell. On their final day, they visited Ramallah, the cultural and political heart of the West Bank. The city buzzed with activity, colorful shops, students chatting in cafes, and Arabic music playing from open windows. They visited the Mahmoud Darwish Museum, dedicated to the famous Palestinian poet, and learned more about local life and aspirations. Later, they traveled to Taybeh, the only entirely Christian town in the West Bank. There, they visited St. George's Church and spoke with a local priest who welcomed them warmly. "We all want peace," he said, "but it must start with understanding." For their final meal, they were invited into a local family's home. Around a table of stuffed grape leaves, grilled lamb, and fresh flatbread, they shared stories and laughter.
"We came here as tourists," Sue said softly, "but we're leaving with friendships and so much more."